Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are very thankful that you have chosen to join us today. We're excited about today's discussion about Spider-Man across the
Woo!
Spider-Verse. And I'll just tell you right off the top, there's no way we could talk about this without spoiling it and spoiling it and spoiling it again, probably even more so. You have to talk about the ending of this movie, and there's no way not to spoil that. You can't talk about it without spoiling it. So just know there are spoilers ahead. We also want to remind you that we're brought to you by progressivechristianity.org, a wonderful place, actually, one of the best places to get all your progressive Christian needs. So go check them out at progressivechristianity.org. We also encourage you to check us out at Facebook and our Moonshine Jesus page, but also in all the places that you get your podcast. Please go over there and subscribe. And that way you'll be assured that you won't miss any of these wonderful and fun-filled shows. More importantly, let's welcome Caleb, my good buddy, to the show. How are you doing today, sir? What are you thinking about today's show?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, and even better because we're finally getting to talk about a summer kind of
A big,
blockbuster movie.
right?
I can't
Yeah,
wait.
yeah.
I'm ready to geek out about this.
I'm very, very ready to geek out about it. But first, we must have some themed beverages. Um, I remember your themed beverage from the last time we did a Spider-Man, I think. I'm curious to see where you went this time.
Yeah, I think last time I did the
You
Spider-Man.
did. You did that
Yeah,
beautiful colored, like with the blue carousel, and I don't remember what the. I think it was
yeah,
a grenadine kind of mixed. I don't know, but it
yeah,
looked
yeah, yeah.
fantastic. It looked amazing.
Yeah,
What
it
direction did you
was.
go on this time?
It was. I went in a completely different direction this time.
Okay.
So I was thinking about Miles Morales, and
Yeah.
I was thinking about his suit, and I thought, well, I want something dark like
Hmm.
his suit. And I thought, well, he's a teenager, and what would
Right.
a teenager drink? I thought soda,
Mhm.
and so I have a Jack and Coke. That's what I am drinking today
Fair
in
enough.
honor of Miles Morales, a Jack and Coke. How about you? What are you drinking?
Well, I went a little different too. I am having a drink called a Miles More Ales.
Oh, I saw this.
Yeah,
Yes.
so this is
Yeah.
I had to twist it just a little bit.
Yeah.
It called for a citrus flavored gin. I'm not a big fan of gin. So
Okay.
this is a ale, but it also has a shot of citrus flavored vodka and then a heavy shot of lemonade in it. And they call it a Miles More Ales. So cheers to you, sir.
Cheers.
It's actually quite good. All right. We're going to have a few more sips of these delicious drinks, and we'll catch you on the other side to geek out a little bit about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Moonshine Jesus, moonshine Jesus, moonshine Jesus, moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello, and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show, where today we are talking about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And as Mark mentioned, if you're just joining in, we will spoil this for you. But
Better
that's
believe it.
okay, because the only way we can really get into it is by spoiling it and really talking about it. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse tells a story about Miles Morales, and after reuniting with Gwen Stacy, Brooklyn's full-time friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is catapulted across the multiverse where he encounters a team of spider people charged with protecting its very existence. However, when the heroes clash on how to handle a new threat, Miles finds himself pitted against the other spiders. Can he redefine his role? We'll see. Okay, Mark,
Yeah.
you and I have both been pretty excited about this. We've been
Crazy
waiting
excited.
for this movie in particular, but also the summer where we get to really dive into some exciting stuff, the summer stuff
Exactly.
that there's a lot of anticipation around. So I want to know, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, did it
Yeah.
live up to your expectations?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This is one of those rare movies that like a sequel that may actually be better than the original. And the original was already incredible. That is rare when that happens. You're talking like Dark Knight kind of air
Yeah.
where it was just that good. The animation alone tops the first movie, which I think they won an Oscar for, and it was probably at that point anyway that it was the best animated movie ever made. And this one is visually, I would say now it takes the new reign of the best animated movie ever. The storylines are incredible. I love the way they bring it together. I was blown away on almost every level, from the animation to the voice acting to the storyline to how they wove them together to even the soundtrack, and it was just incredible. What was your take coming away from it?
It was fantastic. Yeah. So I enjoyed every minute of this. And I agree that the animation was fantastic. And it was great to see different animation styles and different universes. And we didn't get to spend a lot of time in different universes. In the last one, everyone kind of came to Miles's universe. And so getting to see the different animation styles was something that was really incredible, especially Gwen's universe. You know, the colors that they used,
like that
the
watercolor.
pinks, yeah, and the water, and it was just beautiful. In the way that that whenever you were doing kind of close-ups, you could see kind of the colors behind them. It made you feel like you were reading a comic book. And so I went to go see this with my 7-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And we read comic books together, you know, and she's like, Dad, it's like a comic on the screen.
Oh, that's awesome.
She just loved it. She had just found a love of the movie just because of the visuals outside of everything that was going on. It was incredible. So I'm glad to hear that it lived up to your expectations as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think this is going to go down in history as one of those rare movies that followed an incredible movie and may have even been better. Usually they just kind of rest on their laurels and play into the same themes and all of that. They didn't they re-upped it. They took the story you thought you knew and threw some twist on it and re-upped the story as well. It was so brilliantly done.
And so it was also a little bit different in terms of storytelling as well. So we mostly saw things from Miles' perspective last time. And this one begins with Gwen's perspective in her universe by herself. What did you think about that shift in storytelling style? And how do you feel about the pacing of all of that?
I really loved it. And I love that they started out with basically her saying, you know, let's change things up a little bit, just to kind of let you know that they are recognizing that this is different, but this is going to be good, and this is why we're going to do it. I thought it played very well into how they had to do cutting back and forth from different storylines. We had so many Spider-Man involved in this, and we really get more into the multiverse, as you pointed out, not just know that it exists, but now we're going into it and finding it out. And I thought it was important to mix things up and very quickly off the bat let us know that we're going to be jumping from universes here back and forth. And I just love that they brought her on, started her in a band that she basically breaks the band up, and then at the end of the show she's basically, let's get the band, Spider-Man band, let's get the band back together. I love that kind of book ending that they did there. That was fun. Oh, that was so much great. I loved it. What did you think about starting with her? Because it was really, for the first time, hers and Miles' story, rather than just Miles or just,
I loved it. And I found myself sitting there becoming ever more invested in Gwen's character and her story. And so I thought, this is really cool that in a cartoon, basically, we are getting some really significant character development, and a lot better than we see in a lot of live action movies most of the time. And so getting able to get to know some of the other Spider people characters, I think was really fantastic. I also think that helped us to more fully realize how the multiverse operates, the Spider-Verse operates. which got me thinking too. You know, we had another recent Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man went throughout the multiverse, the live action,
Right.
you know, a multiverse with Tom Holland. So I'm curious, who did it better, Mark? Did live action Spider-Man do it better, or did the animated Spider-Man do it better?
It's definitely the animated Spider-Man. I mean, live action just kind of gave the tip of a hat to look. There's this multiverse that exists, and that's where we're all coming together. And there was kind of a little beautiful connection between the two shows in that there's this moment where they're on the top of the Statue of Liberty in the live action one, and they start realizing that the death of someone significant in their life was kind of a pivotal moment, what this show calls a canon event.
Right.
You actually have them kind of discover it without naming it as a canon event, and that they had some commonalities around that happening. And then in this show, we get them actually talking about it and naming it as a canon event and pointing back to the moment that all three of them were talking about. So it was a kind of beautiful overlap. But this show definitely digs deep into the multi-universe and helps us understand how they're connected and how these canon events are pivotal moments across the Spider-Verse. And they delve into it so much more deeply and give us so much more explanation of it that it feels more fleshed out and like you can really grab hold of it a lot more than the kind of tip of the hat we had in the live version. At least that was my take. Did you feel the same, or did you kind of have a different?
No, I think it's indisputable. This is a better movie all around.
And the other one was a good movie.
Better. It was a fantastic movie. So that's what I was sitting there thinking is I was recalling, you know, a year ago when we were sitting here talking about
No Way Home.
Spider-Man No Way Home and how great it was and how cool it was to see all three live action Spider-Man together. And that was cool. And I was sitting there thinking, and this is even better. And it was great to see kind of the different Spider people developed in a way that also didn't quite feel as much like fan service, that it was really well developed, and yeah, I love it. So Mark, you mentioned the canon events, and that's something that becomes very significant, and we find out that if a canon event is broken, and particularly if we're thinking about an event that like the death of someone that Spider-Man is close to, if that doesn't happen, then not only does that impact his world and universe, but also the whole Spider-Verse. And yet, at the end of the show, this is what you were alluding to, I think, a few moments ago. At the end of the show, Miles is determined to go back to his universe and break a canon event, despite warnings about the possible implications. Mark, do you think Miles is going to be able to come back and break canon? And do you think that's going to, if he does, is that going to have any implications to the Spider-Verse?
Well, you've done it yet again. You've stolen. You essentially stolen one of my make me look stupid questions, so that's fine.
Yes,
that's fine. That's fine. I still got one tucked away that I don't think there's any way you're going to even come close to thinking about. This is the way.
I'm just going to come up with absurd stuff. I'm just going to start throwing stuff out there, Mark.
So yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to go and break canon. And I've got when we get to our next segment, I've got some stuff that we might end up talking about this too. I don't think there's any doubt that he might break canon. As a matter of fact, I think it's part of why Gwen ended up deciding she didn't want to be part of the Spidey team anymore. That she started realizing that some of the stuff that Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, was saying might not quite be right. And so I think she recognized that, you know, one of Miguel O'Hara's points about him was that he was an aberration, that he shouldn't have ever happened, that he's not really essentially a Spider-Man. Which I think she started figuring out, well, if he's not really a Spider-Man, and I think he started figuring out as well, Miles, if I'm not really a Spider-Man, then those rules don't apply to me. I can do this because I'm not supposed to be here anyway. So I feel like they both started recognizing that as part of why she distanced herself, part of why he ends up realizing he can go back and do this. And I think it also has one more implication. I think that Miguel O'Hara is not the good guy that we think he is. I think his protection of canon is also a writer's thumbing their noses at the purists about Spider-Man who hate everything that's not canon. And that ultimately this guy protecting canon is going to be revealed to not be as good of a guy as we think. I even think that his backstory that he offers felt a little fishy. So that's my take on it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely going to go and break canon. I think I agree. I don't think the Spider-Verse is going to fall apart. Although I think that's what most of the next movie is going to explore.
Absolutely.
Is this and whether or not the Spider-Verse is going to stay contained or not. And as you know, Mark, I try to stay all the way away from spoilers until I've seen something. And so I didn't even know that there was going to be like a part 2. I get my ticket stub and it says Across the Universe Part 1. And I'm like, what?
See, you read closer than mine, because mine was just on my phone and I didn't read the stuff. And I'm with you. I didn't know that it was Part 1 either. And
okay, so it wasn't just
it wasn't at all. A matter of fact,
being oblivious.
A matter of fact, I'm glad that we have the explicit rating on our show on all the places it goes, because the guy sitting next to me, when we saw Miles in peril, and then it says to be continued.
To be
the dude
continued.
Went, what the fuck? And then he immediately started applauding. Like it was that moment of like, you didn't just do that to us. Oh my God, that was incredible. I loved it anyway. So it was, I am with you.
Okay, so that's hilarious because my theater burst out in applause too at the end of the movie, which I think speaks to across the country. Everyone's applauding, speaks to how good of a movie it is. But okay, so I'm glad that it wasn't just me being oblivious, because it was also one of those things where you, like when you're watching an episode of a TV show and you're like, they're not going to be able to wrap this up in the 5 minutes we have left.
This is
we're looking at a 2-parter. Here it is. Okay, so you also mentioned Miguel O'Hara. And last question, because I know we can't geek out forever.
I wish we could.
And his ill intent. So in the comics, Miguel O'Hara is set in the future in the year 2099, right? So do you think that Miguel O'Hara is actually from the future, or just from? Does that play into his evil connected web that he's spinning here? Or
I think that I think he could be from the future. I think that his backstory is very different from what we think. As a matter of fact, I don't think he's an actual Spider-Man. We saw him taking these shots, which I feel like is probably what was giving his spider powers. I think he is a person whose life was deeply destroyed when a Spider-Man broke canon, and that he decided to put it on himself that he was going to go back and create the society that would stop anyone from breaking canon. And that he's doing it for all the wrong purposes, and maybe actually hurting various Spider-Verses from doing it. I don't know. Am I?
I think that is so good. I think that is so good that if that's not what they wrote, that's what they should have.
I'll take it.
I think that is really good. Also, I just got to say, how cool and meta is it that we're talking about canon in the film itself? I mean, that's just super cool for nerds like
it really
us.
is. And I really do think that they wrote this character and twisted who he really was just enough to kind of poke fun at the geeks who are such canon purists, and that this guy who's protecting canon is going to turn out to be sort of a bad guy, intentionally or unintentionally. I think that's another meta level that may have been going on here.
I love it. Okay. Hey, as much as I would love to geek out about this, because I would geek out all day about Spider-Man and Marvel stuff.
Absolutely.
We got to also talk about theology and politics. So how about this? Why don't we take a quick break, and then we'll pivot and talk about the theopolitical aspects of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. I'm going to do what I did last show, and before we move into the theopolitical, there's one thing we didn't cover that I really need us to talk about. There was this fantastic cameo from Danny Glover, where he was showing up as the Prowler from some Spider-Verse. But the reason why I was so just taken by that happening, Miles Morales is only around because of Danny Glover. Right? Is when he wore the Spider-Man PJs in Community, which caused the writer Michael Bendis to decide that there needs to be a black Spider-Man. And then, in turn, Danny Glover was the first to voice the animated Miles. So it was just a beautiful cameo, and I just felt like that needed to be mentioned. I mean, were you just like, there was audible gasp from the geeks in the theater when that happened. You could hear an intake of, oh!
Yes, I was in a theater on a Sunday afternoon matinee filled with kids, so the only one gasping was me.
Fair enough.
Yes, but yeah, it was fantastic, and in fact, right before the show, because the social media robots that live in my pocket heard me talking about Spider-Man, I started getting a bunch of stuff with Danny Glover's connection to Spider-Man, all these articles and pictures coming up. Yes, so I was literally talking about that as a
Absolutely, I hear you. Okay, well, let's move into the Theopolitico. We are, that's what we're committed to this segment. And we've already talked about Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah.
And I want to start with him, but I'm going to pivot from talking too much about him right now. He essentially tells everyone that there are tragic events that have to happen in order to create spider people that will keep their universe from, falling apart. What's the thing with so many superhero stories being about heroes having to come from some sort of tragedy? And is that a good thing or a bad thing to make it such a central storyline in telling of superhero stories?
Yeah, you're right that almost every superhero that we can think of is somebody who has lost someone in some way. And I mean, that's one of the fun things about this. I think in some ways it's poking fun at that as well. And I think I think it can be dangerous to say, hey, unresolved trauma is something that causes you to be able to go out and do these great things. And no, I think that's a dangerous way for us to think about trauma as a society. And I think the obsession with it is trying to make it somehow relatable to people who have kind of these things in their lives that help to hold them back. But no, I think that's kind of a dangerous way to think about it. What do you?
I think it's both good and bad. I mean, I think it's mostly bad. I think it's mostly bad because it does sort of play into this very harmful theology of redemptive suffering. Like that somehow their suffering created something wonderful. And, we've said it before on this show, suffering is suffering and it sucks and there's nothing good about it. And every now and then outside of it, after it, you can figure out how to use it and then have something good happen. But the moment itself is never good. It is never redemptive on its own. But I do like the kind of thing, the hopeful note of it, of that endings aren't always horrible endings, that you can live out of terrible moments, and that you don't have to get stuck and isolated in them, because that's where PTSD and other very difficult issues come from, is when we get stuck in those moments and can't figure out how to live outside of them. But yeah, in general, I'm with you. I just think it's not the best thing. And it is weird, though, that all superheroes, and not all, but so many superheroes somehow have to come from suffering to be good or to be motivated. Like, is it not possible that someone just such a great, kind, caring person that they decide to become a superhero? Like Batman, couldn't he have just been like, well, stuff like that shouldn't happen to other? I don't know. I just feel like that Yeah.
We have to have the I mean, in Christianity is the same
Yeah.
way,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because we have this. So one, we have this narrative in Christianity that like all humanity is naturally
Right.
bad, is tainted by original
Mm-hmm.
sin, and the atonement is the thing that had to happen to erase this
Right.
sin, and then Christians look back at that as if, okay, and Jesus had to
Right.
die for the atonement of sins so that we can flourish and have
Yeah.
a good
People
eternal
will
life and stuff. So, I mean, we've got this terrible narrative.
Yeah, people
too.
would literally tell you if Jesus didn't die for our sins, what's the point of Christianity? It's like, holy crap, have you not been paying attention about many other things are going on in this that are much more important and impactful to changing our world and making us better people than some made up story about it being anyway. Yeah, we could go. Yeah, I know that those are sticking points for both of us, and we can really just keep going. But I want to move on. There's several more questions. I don't even think we have time for all the questions that I have. All right, so one of the other thoughts that I had. So Miles isn't allowed to join the Spidey team, whatever we're going to call it, because he's seen as essentially an anomaly or something that wasn't supposed to be. And we definitely see people deciding that who someone is something that shouldn't be, or and ultimately marginalizing them because they shouldn't be that way. That's what they're saying ultimately about Miles. Why do humans have a tendency to do that? And what do you think the movie is telling us about that tendency?
Well, I think we often naturally try in a lot of ways to build up a community in a way that makes us feel special, or excludes or we exclude people in a way to make ourselves feel better. And some of that, I think, is inherent within the human condition, and it's about things like jealousy and about like our own self-importance and things like that, and we exclude others I think for the same reason, and sociologists have studied this, and psychologists, in terms of like building up a community of similar folks. And it's something that naturally happens in human beings. That's just something that is a part of it. I think the writers here are telling us, and that's something that we should fight against.
Right.
And it's not good. And I think, certainly, I mean, we're obviously invested in and rooting for Miles Morales here.
Exactly.
And so when we see him being excluded, it sends the message pretty hard to us. But I think that's true too, like as people of faith, that like a lot of churches really, really do that. And they build up like this group of people who all looks, thinks, and acts the exact same way. And a lot of times as those churches decline, and they say, oh, we got to have new people. We got to have new people. What they really mean is we got to have new people who are exactly like us. Don't bring in any new people who are different. Just the people who are just like us. And so I think that's part of the human condition. And the writers are telling us,
right?
No, that's not what that's about. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. And I think the big point right there was, I love that they made one of the main protagonists this person that's an outsider. I think it's also, particularly when you look at what's going on in U.S. politics right now, it's a really big commentary on the way that conservatives are othering folks in the LGBTQIA community, and saying that you shouldn't be, that's an anomaly, and that it's not okay. I think that we see that this is a great kind of subtle commentary on that kind of telling people that you're an anomaly and you shouldn't be. And a main storyline saying, oh, no, exactly who we are is what makes us wonderful. What makes us fabulous. And you're going to see how it gets played out. And we can change things for better because of who we are. And I think that's a really great way of telling that important story. All right.
Yeah, and not to mention that Miles Morales is a person of color, who's a person being excluded, right?
Which is a long history of being told, you're a person, but you're not as good as other people. Another kind of saying, and going back and saying, no, precisely because of who I am it means that I can make a difference in a way that you can't, and it could change the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's brilliant. All right, I'm going to slip in one more quick question here. I
let's do it.
have to, as a Presbyterian, it is a question about determinism or predestination.
Okay, good. You have
determinism, predestination seems to be a theme in this movie. The real heroes, though, end up being the ones that are pushing back against it. Is there value in that, pushing back against some determinism, some fatalism kind of thing? What kind of value is there in pushing back against that kind of thinking?
I think there's a lot of value in that, and I was really glad to see this. So I thought both about your Presbyterianism as I was watching this, but I thought I'm not going to ask him about that because I've asked him because I love
you like to go to that question
to talk about that. Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
So I think it's valuable because a lot of times we get the trope in movies, and I think in superhero movies in particular, that something is fated, that it's destined to be, that you have a destiny that you have to live into. And that's super problematic because we have too much of that kind of language going on in our society anyway. What we need to be talking about is our own power and helping to determine our future together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved seeing that as a theme in this movie. As Miles Morales said, you know what? Maybe I'm going to write my own story.
Yeah, that was great.
I don't need this. If, like you said earlier, if I'm not supposed to be here anyway, I can write my own story. And so I think that was also a message to people who are being told in the United States today that they have a certain place that they fit into, that they have a certain place that they have to be, that you're defined by certain aspects of like who you are, be race or sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever that is, that you're being put into a category. And it's saying, no, you're in control, to at least to some extent of your own destiny and of the kind of society that we're creating together. So I loved that about this movie, and I thought it was playing against.
I'm completely with you. Completely agree. I also like that it kind of pushed the idea of determinism, predestination, causes you to make decisions based on the future or the potential future or fate even. And the heroes of this story seem to be living in the moment and allowing their reaction to the moment create a new future. And I think it's a much healthier way of living. All right, so we know that not only could we geek out about this and go on and on, we can also go all theological and philosophical and political on it over and over again.
Yeah.
But we have run out of time for this segment. So we do, however, get to take a quick break and come back to our favorite segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are in our final segment, the Make Me Look Stupid segment, where we ask each other questions and try to make our co-hosts look stupid. But here's the thing, I was only able to steal one of Mark's questions today.
I got lucky.
So he's got another one locked and loaded. I don't think I'm going to steal it with this, Mark,
fair enough.
But I do have a question for you.
Yep.
Okay, so one dynamic we see explored is the dynamic of parents with children. And so I'm thinking specifically about Miles's relationship with his parents and Gwen's relationship with her dad. And we get some decent quotes about this. Miles's dad says, no matter what I do, somebody always thinks I'm blowing it, and especially in relationship with Miles. And then Gwen's dad says, parenting stuff is a big ass mystery. And so obviously we see that oftentimes a spider person loses somebody who's close to them in a canon event, although it's frequently an uncle or something in Spider-Man universe. So, Mark, do you think this is just making a commentary on canon? Do you think it's making any particular statements on relationships between parents and children? What do you think's going on with this emphasis in this dynamic?
Well, I think, it's a commentary on life. We for good or bad define ourselves by relationships, particularly with relationships with either children or parents, even if it's like adopted parents or parental figures or kids that we bring into our lives. And it is a mystery. I think there's a subtle point being made here, and we have to look at the parent saying this is hard and I'll be judged for not doing it right, and it's a mystery and I don't know what to do. But then we go back to, and I think the character's name is Peter B. Parker. It's the Peter Parker that shows up in the first movie, coming from the multi-universe, and starts to kind of mentor Miles. And he ultimately says to Miles in this one, I'm a parent because of you. And for me, that meant I recognize that the ability to be a part of a life and care about someone and love them is all that really matters in being a parent. I don't have to get it right. And he was reminded that he may have screwed up with trying to mentor Peter, but that didn't seem to matter. What seemed to matter was that relationship and being able to have it and share it, and that there was love in it. And that was that connection that made him realize I can be a parent. So I think it was a larger commentary on what really matters. You don't have to get it right. You are going to screw it up. People are going to judge you. But what matters in it is that you have this relationship, this mentorship of sorts that is founded on love. And if it's founded there, everything's going to be okay, one way or the other.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And, I think that a lot of times in superhero movies, we see different dynamics, and the superheroes who tend to be healthier seem to be people who have some kind of a loving, supportive relationship somewhere in their lives. And so I think it's interesting that we see the various forms of Spider-Man having different interactions with their parents. And, Gwen obviously has a difficult relationship with her dad that ends up driving her away from her home universe for several months. And even though they're eventually able to reconcile, I mean, it drives her more so into this Spider-Dumb. Whereas Miguel, even though he's struggling in his dynamics with his parents, it's clear that his parents are all about what is healthiest for Miles.
Yeah.
And I think that shifts the way that he's looking at his role as Spider-Man and his obligation to duty and his connection to something outside of being a superhero.
Oh, absolutely. I'm completely on board with that, man. I agree. So now it's my turn, right?
All right. You got a question for me?
I do. So did you notice that there was one character who showed up in every universe and was voiced by the same person? Sometimes it was in the background. Sometimes it was. Did you know?
I missed it. Almost. No, tell me.
And it might be that they didn't quite put it in every universe, but I'm pretty sure they made sure it was in every universe.
Okay.
J. Jonah Jameson was saying something about Spider-Man on the radio or on a television show in almost every universe. And
I missed it. How did I miss
every
this?
time it was voiced by J.K. Simmons. I would posit that we have
because he is always.
Well, that's my point. It's my question to you. I would posit that we don't have any other character. We have some characters that are in a few universes played by the same character, but mostly all characters in all universes are played by different people. J.K. is the only one that shows up, as far as I can tell, in every universe played by the same person. My question to you is: J. Jonah Jameson a Nexus being?
Ooh. I think large. Yes, I'm gonna say yes. I think he is, and I think it's also. I think so. I'm bummed that I missed that because that would have been an epic geek
Right.
moment. Because it's so fun that he played that same character
Unbelievable.
in all the live action films. So it's yeah, so that's a fun nod to that at the very least. But I'll say yes. Sure,
I'm with you.
sure.
I think he has to be. I mean,
yeah,
if they're going to play him that way, someone somewhere has thought about the fact that ultimately makes him a Nexus being, a person that can exist in
and
all
you think they'll
in
develop
all
it
realms.
more?
I think they should. I don't know if they will. There's at least some writer somewhere who sat down and figured out, oh, we can justify J. Jonah Jameson being played by J.K. Simmons in every universe because he's so perfect for the role. We can justify it by somehow ultimately saying, yeah, he's a Nexus being. He exists in all realities. It's just what happens. You got to have a few of those. I just thought it was fantastic and such a fun little element of what even the Lego J. Jonah Jameson was. I think they were actually playing the J.K. Rowling's from one of the original Spider-Man's voice. He was using a quote, something that he had already recorded, but it was even in the Lego one. It was just, I thought it was brilliant. I loved it so much.
That is so fun, and how cool to play to nerd them
Absolutely,
by
yeah.
doing
I
that.
love it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Man, this has been awesome, Mark.
Yeah.
I loved watching this, and I feel like we really have paid our dues this year because it's been a little bit of a dry year in terms of coming up with good sci-fi, fantasy, superhero stuff.
And
we've talked about some shows that have been a little obscure. Some have been better than others.
Right.
And I feel like we worked for this, and we
did.
To see this.
It was a long slog, but we did what we had to do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And now we are into this wonderful time where there is a lot of great stuff coming up. So we need to let you all know that we won't be having a Moonshine Jesus show next week.
No.
Or the week after.
Yeah.
Because we both got some stuff going on. But in 3 weeks from today, we'll be back. And Mark, I am so excited about what we're going to talk about. You want to tell everybody what we're talking about finally?
Absolutely. We finally, and oh man, it's been such a long time coming. We finally get to talk about the Flash movie. And it just looks like it's going to be absolutely amazing. Flash screwing things up by timeline stuff and needing to go back, and he meets with different kinds of Batmans and even rescues a Kryptonite. A Kryptonian. Maybe not the Kryptonian that everyone expects. I cannot wait for this. So that'll be our show when we come back, right?
Yes, and I've been waiting 30 years for this, Mark, to see Michael Keaton as Batman again.
Yeah,
I cannot wait. I am so excited. The last time Michael Keaton played Batman, I was 7 years old, Mark, and
so you haven't been waiting for Batfleck to come back? He's in it too. You're kind of dismissive of Batfleck, man.
I actually not to get into this. But I actually kind of like Ben Affleck as Batman. I just think the writing was horrible. I think the movies he was in were terrible. The writing was horrible. But I thought he was as an actor, an aging millionaire playing an aging billionaire. I think there's something to that.
I've loved him as Bruce Wayne, which is what you just point to. Yeah. I never could buy him as Batman. I loved him as Bruce Wayne. He's one of the best Bruce Waynes. But anyway. But we also know what we know that we've been telling people that we'll be at Wild Goose. Hopefully, not hopefully, by the next show, we'll know what time and what stage we'll be on. We can let you know. And we even know what show we'll be talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. Another one that we've been
waiting for
a very long time. The new Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Yes. And so I think we can legitimately say that we've been waiting like 35 years for this one because I don't think Crystal Skull really counts.
Doesn't count for anything really.
Yeah,
No.
so we can just pretend like that one didn't even happen.
Absolutely.
And we can say that for the 35 years, 34 years, we've been waiting for a new Indiana Jones movie, and he's coming out. Harrison Ford is 80 years old, but he is playing Indiana Jones again. And Mark, I heard someone say, an 80-year-old white man playing a tenured professor who refuses to leave his post is perhaps the most realistic element of the Indiana Jones movie.
Well, isn't that true? Isn't that true?
so are you ready to see 80-year-old Indiana Jones coming back for one last adventure? I can't wait for it.
I can't either. And listen, we would love for you to be there. All of you, please come and see the show. We're going to have great giveaways, fantastic giveaways. It'll be beverages, it's going to be t-shirts, it's going to be moonshine jugs with our logo on them. Like, you really need to come and be a part of that event. And just to make it a little easier to do that, we actually have a discount code with Wild Goose. If you punch in moonshine at your discount, you'll get $50 off the overall ticket price. And we just absolutely love to see everybody there. It's so much more fun when we know that all of our listeners who make it possible for us to do the show actually show up, and we get to see you in real life. Like Caleb and I will finally get to, for only the third time, do the show right together rather than from other sides of the country, right?
That's going to be fantastic. And drinking the same drink. We'll all drink the same drink together.
Absolutely.
We're hoping to have a musician there as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Hope you can make it. Okay, we'll see you in 3 weeks from today when we talk about The Flash.
Yeah.
See you next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus.